Hello and welcome to another tutorial from ICT. In the previous tutorial, what we did was we created an application where you get to drag and drop an image across a form. And in this tutorial, I wanted to explore how to drag and drop multiple images inside of the form using similar tactics. So what we did in the last one, we dynamically drew an image onto the screen. And in this one, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using object-oriented programming practices to dynamically create a bunch of classes that will allow us to select this particular object and then manipulate its X and Y value across the screen. So let's just take a look at what this application is going to look like. So the way this one is designed is basically going to tell us how many cards are loaded onto the screen. So right now I have got 13 cards here. So I can randomly pick a card. From then, as you can see, the outline will grow as you press and hold it, right? The person holding the number 8 card there, and it tells me which card I've selected, right? So if I click on the, let's say, number 3, and then if I click on some of the other ones, I can also just move it around anywhere in the screen. I can have multiple cards together, and then if I want to select one from the back, I can always do that as well. And as same from the last one, the cards will be positioned in the middle of the mouse cursor, right? So where the mouse cursor is, so the mouse cursor will be placed in the middle of the card. So it will look like it's moving more naturally across the screen. Okay, so this was a unique challenge to solve, because there's a kind of a interesting way to make something, I suppose, in Windows form, and you can quite easily make a card game. You can make a character card game, or you can sort of use this kind of stuff in your own project if you like. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and create a new project in Visual Studio. So here, let's click on Create a New Project. I'm going to select the Windows Form.NET app, and then we're going to select for the name, just going to type in move multiple objects using Paint or ICT. Okay, and then click Next. .NET 6 is fine for this application. Click Create. And so before we get started, let's make some changes to the form first, right? So I'm going to change the form height and width to 800 by 600. So it's like this. Change the title to moving multiple images using Paint ICT. With the titles there, let's change the double buffered to true, so we get smooth animation on the form. In the back color to 64, 64 and 64. Okay, so it's like a bit of a dark theme. Let's drag and drop a label here. Okay, and for the label, while the label is selected, I'm going to go and just change the font option to 18 and bold. You can choose any font that you want from the list, but this one would do just fine. Change the fore color to yellow. I'm just going to type it in there. Okay. And then secondly, I'm going to change the label text to card 1 of 10. So I'm just going to leave card 1 of 10 here for a little bit, and then obviously it will be dynamically changed when the program is running. And now one thing we need to do is, for the label, I'm going to set the auto size to false, and then we'll manually center it. So go back over to the top, auto size to false, so that way you can just drag and align it all the way there. Okay, so I'm just going to drag it across there. Okay, and then go back here and say text align. You can change the text align to the middle, so it doesn't matter what information is provided there, or the text will always stay true to the center. We also need to change the back color of this one, the label itself. So the back color, I don't want it to be the same color as the form. I just want it to be transparent. So just type in transparent and press enter. It shouldn't look anything different, but when we drag in the cards, we want to still see the card behind the label, because there'll be obviously multiple cards there. Okay, so before we get started, we need to download the images. So the cards folder is here, and inside the cards folder we have our 13 cards. So the number starts from 00 all the way to 12. So highlight all of them, you'll get 13 items inside of there. So these are all PNG images. As you can see, they are all transparent. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to use C# to dynamically load them up from the folder as we have done before in previous tutorials. So that method does work quite well because we have to write less code to access exactly the same things. Okay, so to copy this into the debug folder, I'm just going to right click, copy, and go back to my Visual Studio here, and then right click on the name of the project, go to open folder, bin debug.net 6, and then just leave the cards folder there. So when the program's debugged, the exe file will find the folder right there, and it will be able to load up the images that we need. Okay. Another thing we're going to need to do is we need to create a class inside the Solutions Explorer there. So right click on the name again, add one class. In this case, we're going to call this one card with a capital C, and then add there. This is an empty class that Visual Studio is going to create. I just leave some space there so we can add our instructions there later on. Let's go back to the form. Once we are back in the form, we need to add the events. So I think before we do that, we need to add a timer as well. I'll drag and drop the timer here. Let's name the timer form timer, set the enable to true, and then set the interval to 20. So we want the form to be updated every 20 milliseconds. So when we are moving something, it's real time. Okay. Back at the form again. So I'm going to click on the form again, go to the events window there, and we need several mouse events and a paint event, right? So we need mouse down. So I'm going to type in form mouse down. Okay, and then we'll go back here and type in for form mouse move. Say form mouse move, like so, and then we come back form mouse up we need, so form mouse up. Okay, so we got the mouse down, mouse move, and mouse up. And we also need the paint. So paint is one of the most important one because this whole series is based around the paint event. So we'll say form paint event, like so. Okay, so we got our 4 events for the form. We also need one for the timer. So if I click on the timer, we're still in the events window there. So just under tick, you can just say form timer event, like so, and then we have got our event for the form timer. Okay, so now we can get started with the card class first. So the class, we're going to have a bunch of public variables and the constructor, so nothing extra in this one. But there is a small trick that we're going to be using where in the last few examples, I think we did use the class to load the files directly from the folders. But in this case, what we'll do is we'll do it a bit more efficiently, where we'll get the program to load the images and then pass it into their classes for the cards. Okay, let's see how to do that. So we'll do public image. We'll use the image called card pick. That way it's easier to call it from the other side. There's a public int, we'll do width, public int height, public point position, new point, and just leave it empty. Public boolean for active, so if whether the card that we click on, we can set this one is whether to active or not active. We can set that to false for now, and then we also need a rectangle. So rectangle called rect. Okay, and then public card. So this is going to be the home class constructor. Right, and then we'll say card pick is equals to image from file. Okay, and here is where we're going to be passing information to this class. So what we can do is we can add an argument for this class inside of the form constructor. So I'm going to add a string called image location. So we'll use that location there to load the images that we need for when the class is being created. Okay. So the default width, so the cards are all same height and width. So and then height to 105. So width to 65 and height to 105. And then we've got the rect is equals to new rect. And then inside of there, we can say position.x. position of y, width, and then height. So the reason for using the rectangle is because rectangle has a function called contains, which we can use to figure out whether the click that happened on the form is inside of that particular rectangle. So that way we can activate it and then move it across with the mouse cursor. Okay, so that's all we need for the card class. And now we can move on to the form one. Okay, so we have all of our functions there. We also need a couple more functions here. I think what we'll do is we'll make a void, say we will go setup app, like so, and then we'll do another one for void make cards. Okay, so these ones here are functions and the rest of them are events. Okay, and then we'll do the variables right at the top. We've got a list. We want to make a list of cards. We call it cards equals new list. We're going to call it card, call it selected card. So whichever card is selected, we'll be able to save a reference of that inside of this one. We'll go to say int to index value. So obviously the card that we select, we want to understand what index value that has inside of the list. So then we can say this is 1 of 13, this is 5 of 13, or this one is 10 of 13 or whatever, right? We also need to do the int x position. So x position is basically just going to be used to display the cards across the horizontal line. So they'll all have the same y position when they start, but the x position will just need to increment it as they are being positioned in there. So that way it looks like it's a deck of cards. Okay, and we need a list of string. So this one is going to be text, and this one is called image location. So this is where we get to load up all the files and save into this list. Int card number. So number equals to, give a value of -1. And then int total cards 0 is the default, and then int line animation is equal to 0. So yeah, so the line animation one we're going to be using to basically make the lines thicker as it, as you press and hold it up until it gets to a certain value and then stop, and then reset it when the mouse is released. Okay, so in the form one, we're just going to run the setup app function here. So when the program loads, it should just load up all the stuff that we want inside of there, and then also we do the make cards bit. So inside of the setup app, we're going to say image location is equals to directory get files, and the directory that we're after is called cards, and the files that we want are all pngs. So .png here, and then loop through them and save all the location of the images inside of the image location list. Okay, and then we're going to say total cards is equals to image location dot count. The amount of images that you found, that'll be the number of total cards. And then we'll say is for int I is equal to 0, length is going to be total cards, so the number of cards that you found, and the number of time you found, we're just going to run the make cards function from there. Okay, so we're just going to run this function from inside of that loop, so when the function runs. Okay, and right at the bottom there, we're going to say label one text, because we only have one label, there's no need to rename it. So card plus a number plus 1 of plus total cards. But let's just say, the reason we're using the plus is because an array will always count from a 0, right? So because you can't have card 0 of 13 if you have 1 selected, so it needs to have a value. So basically we're just adding 1 to it, so we're going to be using the similar method when we're actually selecting a card. So this one is just to basically like a placeholder when the program actually loads. Okay, so I just want to see if he actually if it's loading all the images first. So if we run this now, okay, so as you can see, it says a card 0 of 13, right? So that's perfectly fine. Okay, and obviously that 0 is going to change once this loop actually happens, because right now nothing's happening inside this function, right? So it's completely empty. If I just set this to like say card number to 7 and then run the program, it should just say card 7 cards of 13, right? So card 8 of 13, because it's adding 1. Okay, I'm just going to delete that line from there. Okay, let's get started on this one. So we've got all of that. We're going to say card number is going to be plus plus, so it's just going to increment 1. So each time the function runs, it's going to increment 1 inside the card number 1. Expose is going to be plus equals to 55. There's going to be go 55 pixels to the left each card, and call it new card like so. And we also need to give the image location of this one. So we're going to say image location like this one, and then pass in the card number variable inside of that, so that way it knows if it's the 0 1, first one, second one, third one, and so on. New card.position.x is going to be expose, so whatever value is added there, we will do that. New card.position.y is going to be equals to 300, so all the cards are going to be in the same line. New card.direct.x is equals to new card.position.x, new card.y, new card.position.y. We're just aligning the rectangle and the position of that, and then lastly just add the new card to the cards list, right? So right now we should have all 13 cards added, because this will run 13 times. Okay, let's see if that works for us. So that should give us a right number of the cards there. There you go. So that says card 13 out of 13. But it's not been added to the display yet, because we're not drawing it as an image onto display yet, but it's all been positioned properly. Okay, so let's do the mouse down event first here. So we need a new point to capture the mouse position. Mouse position is new point. Right, and inside of there we can say e.x and e.y. So that's the mouse horizontal and vertical positions. Okay, let's run a for each loop. So in here we can say for each loop the type that we're after, the variable is card, and then we just call this one new card, and what we're after is cards. So all the card inside of it, you're just going to loop through each card that's inside of the cards list, because we already added 13 of them inside of there. Okay, say if selected card, let's spell that right. Selected card there is equals to null. So there is no selected card at the moment, right? And because it's the mouse down one. So if there's no selected card, if card direct, no, sorry, not card direct, new card direct, like so, and then say contains. Okay, mouse position. So if it contains the mouse position, yeah. Okay, if it contains the mouse position, then we can say selected card, I got it right this time, is equals to new card. So we're just creating a reference into this variable that exists inside of this class with the card that we have clicked on. So once we clicked on the form, that's the card that is selected, that's the one that we got, and we'll keep that as a reference. And then we say new card active is equals to true. So right now we know which card is activated from list of all the other one. And then we define the index value of this card. So we can index value is equals to cards.index of, then the index of that card, and we'll store it in the index value. And right after that we need to update the index value to the label. Yeah, I'm just gonna copy and paste that. Okay. do the same thing, and then we're just going to change that to index value. Okay, so instead of saying the number of cards, we're basically just showing the index value. So whichever one that we click on, we can reference that and then find exactly where it exists inside of the list. Now we can move on to the mouse move function. Okay, so the mouse moves function is going to activate once we moving the object. So to do that is fairly easy. You can just say if selected card is not equals to null. So there is a card available inside the selected card reference there. Then we can say selected card dot position dot x is equals to e dot x minus selected card dot width divided by 2. Selected card dot position dot y is equals to e dot y minus selected card dot height is divided by 2. Okay, so it's got these two values there. So basically the mouse cursor will be exactly in the middle. Okay, and that's all we need for the mouse move one. And this is only going to trigger if we have a card selected once the mouse is moving. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything. Okay, and then we have the mouse up. So in the mouse up event, we need to run another for each loop. So for each loop, we got cards, and then cards there. So just say temp card, and then cards here. Okay. So the card type, name of the variable, and name of the list, and then obviously we're going to say temp card active is equals to false. So we're just going to, instead of checking through whichever one was selected, going through the list is a lot easier. So that way we can just loop through the list of entire ones and then basically set all of their active values to false. So as soon as the mouse up is triggered, we're going to say selected card is equals to null. So we want to make sure we don't have another card that's selected. I'm going to say not line animation, set that to 0. So it doesn't need to do anything else. Okay, and that's what we need for the mouse up event. Okay, so let's do the timer, and then we can do the paint event last. Okay, so in the timer one, we'll run a for each loop again. Same card, the type, card define, and then cards there. Okay, and then just say card dot x is equals to card dot position dot x. Direct y is equals to card dot position dot y. So because the timer event is the quickest one, or the only one that's updating the form constantly, we want to make sure that the rectangle and the card position for the class is exactly the same as each other. So that way it doesn't matter where they move on the form, we'll still be able to click on them and drag them across as we need to. Okay, and so this is all we need for the cards, and then we need something for the line to grow and stop. Okay, so say selected card is not equals to null. Right, so and then in that case we'll say if line animation is less than 10, line animation plus plus. So it's just going to keep growing until it gets to 10, and then once we leave the mouse, it'll just get reset back to 0. Okay. The animation itself will take place inside of the paint event because that's where all the updating is happening. Okay, so for the paint, I'm just going to copy this for each loop and paste inside of there. We'll delete what's inside of there because we don't have to type it up again anyway. All right, so for the paint event, I just copied and pasted the for each loop and just deleted these two lines. Right, so because we need to loop through all the cards again. And in this case, we need to now draw them onto the screen. So I have to say e.graphics.draw image. Okay, inside of there, we can say card.card pick. So that's the image that we want to draw. Then card.position.x, card.position.y, and say width, and then card.width, and then card.height. So that's what we need to just to draw the cards on the screen. Okay, so if I drag If I run this, I'm not dragging this. I run this now, I just want to see if the cards are being placed on there. All right, now the cards are being placed and I'm actually able to click on them. So if I click on them, this card 1 of 13, nope, most. Okay, so what we can do now is, okay, so still inside the for each loop, I'm going to go ahead and give the rectangle a outline. Let's create a pen all outline. Okay, and then say if card is now active, then outline equals to new pen, and then we're going to say red, and then it's going to be line animation, because that's going to be the thickness of the brush there, so the thickness of the pen. Okay, else we're going to say outline is equals to new pen. Okay, and we don't want it to show any color. If it's not active, there's no need to show any color, so we're just going to go with transparent. Okay, and give it a 1 for that, or even a 0 is fine. I just leave it at 1 because it's going to be transparent anyway, so it's not going to show anything. Okay, so lastly, we need to draw the rectangle now. graphics.draw rectangle, the outline, and then so whichever one is active, it will just draw it onto that. Okay, that's for the for each loop there. So now we can go out of the for each loop. Okay, and here we can say if selected card is not equals to null. If selected card is not equals to null, then we can say e.graphics.draw image. Right. Selected card pick. So selected card dot position dot x card dot position dot y width and okay. In this if statement, the card that the user has selected will be drawn in front of all the other cards on the screen. We also, I think I also forgot something here, which is to invalidate the form. To do this to invalidate, because without this, it's not going to update the form. It's okay so far. Let's give it a try and see what comes out of it. And then so I got all of these now. So if I hold it, so as you can see, if I press and hold 1, right, the line grows, and then as soon as it gets to 10, then it will stop. Right, so you can change the number and see if you need to make it thicker or thinner, however you want to do it. Okay, and the rectangle is moving with the image, right? So because it's being updated across. Okay, place it wherever I want and move it behind there as well. But only problem here is going to be because the card is moved across there. If you move something like 2 down, let's say for example, it might be difficult because I can't select it from there because it's being blocked by the label, because the label's stretched across there. But as soon as you just pick it from the top, it will just move it to the middle, and then you're able to move it across, right? And there you go. I think red looks nice, but we can always change it to say yellow and try that. Line number, change it to 5. Let's see what that does. Okay, so there you go. So it gradually moves it to the color. You can even change it to say maroon. So it's a red-ish because it's a red card. So just move it to maroon. There you go. It's a slightly more subtle in the border of it. 7, 8, 10. You can just select whichever and still work with that. I think the only thing I probably would change here is the X values, because that's I think the initial position is fine. If I change that to 0, it looks like it's too far across the screen there. The cards are there, it's too far across the screen. It's fine. I'm going to do like a 50. Yeah, I mean, that's better. It looks like it's slightly more in the middle. It looks like more of a deck rather than a, it's going far across there. Yeah. So this can be changed quite easily to make into like a character card, or if you want to make sort of like trading card game, card battle game, or something like that. You can quite easily do stuff like that. Find this video helpful, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helped me as well. And other than that, hope you had fun. Have a good day, and I will see you on the next tutorial.